from Meirc, from Dubai, United Arab Emirates. I hope everyone is doing fine, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the continuation of this corporate communication webinar. In part one, we talked a bit about the definition of communication in general. We talked about corporate communication per se. We talked about the difference between objectives, mission, vision, what is the real meaning of a corporate image, and a corporate reputation, corporate identity, also about the corporate vision and how those differ. If you have any questions about those, later on we could discuss these. Please feel free to type your question, and we can discuss them once we are done with this part two, and in which we're talking about now the corporate communication from the point of view its relation with the media. When we talk about media relations, what do we mean by that? Media is any outlet, any vehicle that will transfer, deliver our news, whatever is going on, whether it's internally or externally, to the public, to our public, or publics, I should say, in plural, meaning the stakeholders. And once again, as we talked about yesterday, each one of your organization, ladies and gentlemen, you do have different stakeholders, you from someone else, and so on and so forth. So when we talk about media relations concerning the corporate communication, it involves how do we manage our communications in relationship with the media or towards the media. Okay, and we need to always keep in mind that communicating with the media on a continuous basis is in the core of our specialty, which is corporate communication. When we talk about media relations, this kind of relationship must be mutual or mutually beneficial, okay, for both parties and for the organization, meaning us, and for the media also. Nowadays, mass media is the preferred channel for reaching out to the public. But when we say mass media, meaning any kind of media that will connect or that will reach publics in general, mass amount and numbers of public, we need to take into consideration when we talk about mass media nowadays, we're referring more and more to the new media, the social media and so on. Audiences in general, they view whatever news is coming up or whatever media coverage is coming up from the media as a bit more credible than the traditional advertisements or publicity or any kind of promotional efforts. Meaning, you could put a page on front page of any magazine or any daily newspaper as a commercial or a publicity or an advertisement for your organization or for your services and or products. You pay for it. Or you could have someone writing an article, having an interview, summarizing some news that came up through your press conference, your latest press conference. So this is what we mean by the media coverage is a bit more credible. Now, we need to take into consideration that even though it is it costs to advertise or to promote our services, our efforts to promote our products, but the good thing about it, or one of the advantages when we talk about paid advertisement, is we have full control. We could say we need to advertise this product or that service, I don't know, 3 times a day, for 7 days on the front page or page number 2 or right before the news or in the middle of the news. So we have more control because we're paying for it. Whereas if we depend on media coverage, even though it is more credible, but we have no control over it. We cannot control how many reporters will come to sit for our press conference. We don't know, even though, let's say, 10 of them show up, we don't know if 2 or 3 were right, and whatever those 2 or 3 were right, is it to our advantage or to our disadvantage? So this is the main difference when we talk about mass media and media relations as compared to traditional advertising and or promotion. So we do need to pay close attention to our relations with the media. In all of my courses, as far as public relations and media, as far as corporate communication, crisis communication, I always tell my participants, one thing you need to come out from this course, one thing you need to remember: do not make enemies with the media. Do not make enemies, okay? Because let's face it, and I've been on both sides, and the media sides and the public relation and the corporate communication side. Media will always win, okay? So just keep this in mind. We need to keep the media relations positive. We need to keep it ongoing. We need to make it always and continuous. Have good relationship with journalists. Have good relationship with editors or chief editors, because at the end, any press release or news release news release that you're going to send, it's going to be under their control. They may not have the place to put it all. They may not have a place at all. So always make sure you keep that good positive a relationship between you and the media. Now, when you're dealing with the media, as far as media relations as a part of the corporate communication, okay, what are what do we need to look for? What is the criteria of the news that we need to send to the media? Or what is the criteria in which way we need to write something in news or answer some questions during an interview to make sure that our criteria is newsworthy, that our news fits that criteria. So a few questions we need to ask ourselves and then have the answers for them. Number one, is it something new, or we are repeating same news, same information over and over again? Is whatever we are talking about or whatever our public is going to listen to, is it unique, unusual, different, interesting, significant? Okay, so these are some of the questions that we need to always pay attention to. We in media we say, does it have a news value? Is it newsworthy? If it's not, we don't need to bother the media with that. Okay, when we decide that we are going to not promote, but write about something, send a message through the channel of our corporate communication, be it internally or externally. But let's focus on the external, because of course internally you will have our own magazines, our own brochure, we have the intranet and so on and so forth. But let's focus on the external channels of communication. We need to ask the questions: how does whatever I'm writing or whatever the news I am working on, how does it affect my readers, my listeners, my public, my stakeholders? Okay, does it affect them, first of all? And if so, how? Negatively or positively? If it's not unusual, if it's not significant, as we said, if it's not unique, we're just wasting our time and the time of our publics reading about it. Like I know of some organizations, and I'm sure, and I hope yours are not such as, I mean, it's within their KPI. At the beginning of the year, they set how many press release we need to send out, how many press conferences we need to do. I mean, we don't. What if we need more or less? Press releases or press conferences. So whatever we do as far as news towards the media, which, as I said, media is the vehicle that will transfer, that will deliver this message to our constituents or our stakeholders, our publics. It has to be newsworthy. Okay, that's as far as the external communication. Within the organization, that is what we call employee communication. Okay, and it is very important to have the link or the interchangeable mutual benefits between the employee communication and our organizational identity, okay, or OI, we call it. When we talk about employee communication, in some organization, it is called also staff communication, internal communication. So any name that is used, as long as it means it is internal and any activity that is going on inside the organization should be covered within internal channels, and the main subject here, or the main target, or the main public audience is the employees, or are the employees themselves. Also, in employee communication, we're talking about two central areas of employee communication. The first one is management communication, which usually it is between a manager and his or her subordinates and or employees. This is the first area of employee communication. The second is the corporate information and communication system, meaning whatever information we have within that corporation and what are the tools or what are the systems of communication that we use, that we utilize to send and deliver those news, okay, or any updates for the organization. Employee communication tend to have a major impact on the what is also called, as I said, OI, or organization identification. Okay, studies have shown that any type of downward communication, meaning from top management to bottom, improve the organizational identification when and only when the information is perceived reliable from top to down. So there's always, or we should always have a balance between what is called downward communication from top to bottom and what we call upward communication, meaning from the grassroots of the employees of the organization to the top management. So this is as far as internal, external communication, because as we said last time, if you still recall, when we talk about corporate communication, it encompasses many areas, many fields, many disciplines of communication, starting with the internal communication, moving to the external communication, starting with internal, external, and our publics and our stakeholders. So all these disciplines and areas we really need to pay attention to. So our effort in corporate communication would be complete, would be effective, and would be efficient at the same time. Okay, let's move now a bit to what we call the new media, as compared to, I don't want to say the old media, but the typical media. Okay, the new media mainly nowadays consists of digital media, anything electronic. Some of the numbers that you look at or you hear about, I mean, as a comparison, if you want to say, there are in the world globally now, there was a study done about a year and a half ago or 2 years. I'm not sure when I read it. And it says in the world, there are 4.2 billion people who are on social media or who own a device, electronic device, whether it's a laptop and they are engaged and involved in social media. 4.2 billion. Whereas we have 3.5 billion people who owns a toothbrush. I mean, just a comparison to see what is more important nowadays, to know and to see the importance of the new media. Mainly, it is, as I said, the digital media. The new media is less linked nowadays to a specific media platform. This is why we talk about multimedia. So it could be anything. It could be a laptop, it could be desktop, it could be a device, a cell phone, and so on and so forth. Okay, the new media now, some of its characteristics, it is more personal, but also it is more social. So it works both ways, the personal aspect of it and the social aspect of it. The personal media devices nowadays allow people to stay in touch with each other if they opt to, if they elect to collaborate, to share information, to comment, and I mean, people. For most people, they spend many hours just on social media, communicating with friends, communicating at work. Now more and more organizations are starting to have a chat groups as teams. Instead of calling or emailing, they do their meetings virtually among each other with a virtual team through a chat room on WhatsApp or whatever device they are using. When we talk about new media, we always need to take into consideration also for a new media, we need a new type or new style of communication. So let's call it the new communication. It's a global process. It's unlimited with now the buzzword being globalization. So of course, it's a global process. It needs to be understood as a huge, major shift from the classical mass media, meaning radio, meaning TV, meaning newspapers, actual newspapers, tangible newspapers, physical newspapers, and the new mass media, which is the social media, which is the virtual meetings, the devices, the everything related to electronics. Okay, so when we mention new media, we need to look into new ways of communication, which is called the new communication. As a tradition, usually corporate communication was all about writing speeches, editing stuff, distributing any kind of communication material at the office, trying to create content for the internal magazine, for the internal newsletter or brochure, to communicate their message more clearly and to avoid any kind of misperceptions. Many company nowadays, they began to adopt new and inspiring corporate communication tools, many different tools. You have a lot of issues or a lot of styles, a lot of tools using that, the intranet, the SMS, the the WhatsApp, the LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as you know, we're not advertising here, is one of the biggest professional or corporate platform to exchange information and so on and so forth. So the point here, as we are moving to the new media, we need to also be moving to new tools and new ways of communicating, which is called the new communication. Now, as we all know, there's always with everything new, there are always some benefits and at the same time some challenges. So if we want to talk about challenges of the new media, because this is what corporate communication is using nowadays most of the time, all right? Because rarely are waiting for the 8 p.m. evening news to see what's going on in the world and. So of course, they got it on their device 5 or 6 or 10 hours, before the nightly news. So some of the benefits of the social media, it allows inbound information to flow to outbound officials from any type of social media users. It used to be, when we talk about media and communication, we talk about the push and the pull ways. Okay, the old, I don't want to call them the old day, but the typical days, it used to be mainly the push style of media, meaning we'll send you the news in the newspaper. We push it to you, and then you are there, and then you receive it. Now it's pull. Now we're pushing information, but we're pulling out information. We're extracting information, whether we approve of it, us as users, or we are not. And how many scandals are we're hearing about invading people's and customers' privacies, whether it's X organization or Y organization. We don't want to name names. Okay, so a part of the benefits is that the idea nowadays of the huge WWW, which is the World Wide Web, it encompasses the ability to reach a large audience in a relatively short amount of time. But at the same time, that could be a challenge. That could be, a danger, or a dangerous zone. In customer service, what we used to teach that for every satisfied customer, usually studies have shown that one satisfied customer will tell or will inform 1 to 3 other people about his or her satisfaction from a service or a product or food or whatever. Whereas, excuse me, a dissatisfied customer will inform 9 to 12 people. Yeah, so it's about 3 to 4 times more than the satisfied customer. Imagine now a dissatisfied customer, how many people can he or she reach in a split second via the new media? So even though it is beneficial, of course, the speed of sending and or receiving information, but at the same time, it could be dangerous. Okay, now social media is what I've heard, a lot about. It's putting a face to the name. It used to be just the CEO of so and so. We have to read a book or buy a newspaper to know, or do some, read about his or her biography to know who he or she is. But nowadays, it's there. So these are some of the benefits. Also, it allows us, the new media. It allows us to track our success, our unsuccessful deeds or tasks. So all this due to the new media, of course, based on the new all the new development in communication and in technology. Also, some of the challenges, it takes a lot of time. I mean, imagine your organization or you personally, you have an account on LinkedIn, you have an account on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and so on and so on. I mean, do you have time to do this? So it is time consuming. This is some of the challenges. Social media sites also, it opened the door to a lot of unusable information, inaccuracy, so on and so forth. So we need to pay attention to that. Simply having a social media present, it's not enough nowadays. You need to manage it. You need to work on it, because it allows, that social media presence allows for you just to, to send the information, but at the same time, you need to receive also, information in, and you need to get information out. So any comments, anything negative about your product or your services, you should be able to, you should be ready, I should say, to deal with that. I think our time is almost finishing up here. If you have any questions about what we talked about in this part 2 of the corporate communication, we'll allow a few minutes here. I'll stick around for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, whether about this part 2 of the corporate communication, the webinar, or the part 1 when we talked about the corporate image, the corporate reputation, the vision, the identity of the corporation. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to entertain those questions for you. Okay. Well, since I don't see anyone typing any information, but I just got a few thank yous. Mr. or Ms. Nuran, thank you. You're welcome. And please, at any point, please get in touch with us at meirc@meirc.com. Then we'll be more than happy to assist you, answer any questions, and So I really appreciate your presence here. I hope the information was beneficial, and we hope to meet you either person, face-to-face, in one of our public courses or in-house courses at Meirc, or once again, we may meet virtually on using the new media, as we talked about. I really appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, you take care. Meirc.com